Hello, I'm Robert Sheehan, and I'm in custody at the Hollywood Reporter. Hello, I'm Robert Sheehan, and you're watching In Studio with the Hollywood Reporter. Sorry, I've just realised that the cameraman has black laces in one shoe and white laces in the other. I'm wearing leggings, look at that. Didn't you say we were going to have fun in this interview?
I know, I guess we... Obviously you play Klaus on the Umbrella Academy, and right now it's just me and you sitting here, but I don't know.
What about all those people?
Is there anyone living or dead around that you are picking up on today, or?
Let me think about my day. Oh, you know what? I started my day... This isn't typical, folks at home, but I started my day at the Chateau Marmont.
Oh gosh, fancy.
Because it was someone's birthday, so I stayed there last night. And so I was thinking about John Belushi's sort of overdose ghost in the corridors, wailing for more drugs, possibly, potentially. May he rest in peace and in rock and roll.
In what ways do you wish you were more like Klaus, though?
No ways at all, man.
Okay.
None really at all, you know. He's someone who struggles with drug addiction and, you know, was born in a loveless shit household, you know, the kind of gilded cage and all that. So, very little, to be honest.
Yeah.
Very little. You know, all of that bluster, all of that, like, is all...
Not for you.
Well, it's all sort of lacquered on, you know. It's all a way of coping. It's a kind of a annoying coping mechanism, I think, you know. And that's what a lot of former drug addicts will tell you. They're like, you know, the thing about drug addicts and drug rehabilitation is it's a very honourable cause, but the problem with drug addicts is they're really annoying. They're really irritating people when on drugs and not on drugs. So, unfortunately, our dear Klaus falls into that category.
Going into that, getting in kind of the mindset of his addiction, how did you view his addiction and kind of where he got there?
You know, the whole, like, in the comic book, his ability to see ghosts has nothing to do with drug addiction. Yeah. But in the show, because the devilishly handsome and piratical Steve Blackman, who's our boss, the showrunner, wanted to kind of ground everything so Klaus doesn't levitate, you know, Diego doesn't hold his breath underwater for 9 hours. You know, they're much more humans, they're much more sort of on the ground human beings dealing with everyday stuff. And so the drug addiction thing was a way to kind of couch his ability to see the dead in reality, you know. Just in the same way, like in The Sixth Sense, you know, that brilliant metaphor is who's dead and who isn't in this kind of suburban, you know, white America. It's like these people are all spiritually dead.
Are you a big Sixth Sense fan?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I loved it. I loved that movie when it came out, yeah. But yeah, you know, that's what I suppose TV and film has to do, is to kind of take these very sort of bizarre concepts and make them allegorical for something else.
Yeah. Joining the series, what stood out to you about Klaus, though, and why you wanted to join?
One of the things I was wary of was making him... I wanted to have someone who's that kind of expressive and mischievous, but make him really, really different to this other TV show I'd done 10 years previous called Misfits, right? Yeah. So that was the challenge. And I was like, it's been 10 years now. Let's do a character like him, but make him a completely different flavour. And so, you know, as the series starts off, I'll be absolutely honest with you. The first couple episodes, I'm like, ooh, I think I'm doing too much, frankly.
Why is that?
Because I think I was just too, out there and too sort of, you know, sort of over-egging the pudding, as they'd say at home. But then, you know, as the series kind of progresses and we start to see Klaus's tragedy deepen, you know, all the horrible stuff that he goes through to kind of get off drugs and to come to terms with all of his powers and stuff, you know, the character takes a very, very different turn to what Nathan from Misfits was. Because Nathan from Misfits was quite bulletproof in many ways. He was an unchangeable entity. He was always going to be that, essentially like a sort of a penis with a skinny white backpack. Oh my God. But Klaus has he's more fragile, you know. he's kind of someone who's the opposite in a way, because he's in a constant state of flux and transformation. And that's kind of why, that's what I wanted to get round to saying about why I wanted to get on the show, because I was like, let's do a character who's never the same character for very long.
Yeah.
And is essentially like an environment sponge. Everything is kind of, drifting. Like halfway through the series of Umbrella, he experiences love for the first time. And that's something that is profound, especially from this very kind of opulent, isolated, loveless environment that he's had to grow up in. That suddenly it's like, what's the most interesting thing you can do with that character who's completely self-serving? Well, make him fall in love, and then give him no option but to serve something else, serve something outside of himself. And so as the series goes on and on and on, I'm going to be jabbing Steve Blackman with a sharpened stick to keep Klaus transforming into something else and into something else and into something else. And that way, you're kind of, you get to play a lot of different flavors and allow whatever's clacking around your head at the time to influence where the character takes you next. Do you know what I mean?
And you said in order to do that, you've had a lot of freedom with the character in terms of what you brought, and Blackman was...
Yeah, to some degree. I will say the scripts were pretty written, I mean, I sort of sprinkled a bit of lunacy on top, I'd say. A lot of the pilot, a lot of the first episode, not a lot, but there are quite a few lines of dialogue that are improvised and stuff that kind of bounced off each other. There's one where I said something about playing tennis with Hitler, which I made up on the day. But honestly, mostly it's just you have to co-opt the material and try and make it as seem as improvisational as you can possibly make it seem, certain things about the show that completely baffle me. And
like what?
The dancing is one of them. Like, I'm like, people love it. People love it. Good on yous. But me, I'm like, why are we all dancing? But, I think it's that thing about, like, trying to show off character. I think the intention behind it was try and show all these characters alone as though they are alone. Yeah. But it didn't end up being that. Yeah. Because we're all dancing in a performative way, I think. So I don't really fully understand what the dancing is, to be honest and frank.
I guess it showed each of your characteristics of who you each were as children dancers. In a fun way and as dancers. Yeah.
I love how I'm like asking you now.
Yeah, no, I got the hot seat. In a lot of ways, the children grapple with their childhood in different ways. How would you say Klaus handles it?
By drugs. Yeah. By drugs, yeah. He handles it by
Beyond
drugs.
that, though, does Diego kind of still wants to be this vigilante and save the world? Klaus doesn't really...
No.
Do you think he'll ever get to the point where he wants to get back to there? Or
to what? To like saving the world?
Saving the world and kind of being this team family of superheroes.
No, his reasons are never like, comic booky.
Yeah.
Like Diego's are. His reasons aren't that.
No.
I think his reasons are
more human.
Like all addicts, they transfer one energy into another energy, and it's always obsessive.
Speaking of potential, what's going to go on in season 2?
Listen, man, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
I'm working for the big Netflix corporation. They have ears everywhere, and they would assassinate me on the way out from the lift.
Here.
Definitely no one's here.
Definitely not here.
Yeah, people skedaddled about 6 hours ago, I'd say here, but I don't know. I mean, the last thing we saw of the first season was us escaping the kind of apocalypse, the present timeline. So, not giving anything away, we essentially get thrown into another place. Yeah. And that's really all I can say, because I don't know what I'm supposed to say and what I'm not supposed to say.
Well, going into production for season 2, what are you looking forward to most about kind of getting back together with the cast and exploring?
Because I can't remember how to do it. It's true. I can't really.
You have to get in the mindset.
Yeah, and have the same people, the same energies around you, and sort of fall back into that lovely dynamic. And it is a lovely dynamic.
It seems like such a tough thing to do.
It is, but it's also it's like swimming or riding a bicycle or something.
You get right back into it.
You sort of fall back into it quite naturally, and that's what I'm looking forward to. Toronto is a magnificent town, honest to God. I had guilty amounts of fun there last year, honest to God. It was so beautiful. I mean, you know, the weather's a pain in the ass, but then the weather breaks and it's spring and everybody's frolicking around in fig leaves and singing and growing vegetables, and it's all so lovely. And like you realize in Toronto that you're still very much in wild North American nature. It just so happens that they plopped a city there, you know what I mean? And it's really beautiful. So I'm really looking forward to going back. Toronto, the old dysfunctional fam back together. Yeah, it's lovely. It's a really nice dynamic, you know. And thank God, because it isn't always that.
Yeah.
You know, it isn't always that. But thankfully, we're all of an age too, you know. I mean, I think if the show was about us when we was like 21, 22, you know, there would have been a few fragile egos in the room. But there really isn't. Everybody
all
just
adults.
Yeah,
Professionals.
and everybody knows how important that is to just be good to each other, you know. So it's a really happy environment. Thankfully, I'm happy to report.
It's as if you guys are a dysfunctional family on screen, but off screen you guys are more
Only drama of the good kind, you know. Only dramas of the good kind. Although I'm like, you know, very much like the Kato to David Castaneda's Pink Panther, you know. He could be just coming home and getting into the lift after a long day, and I'll just spring out at him and get him in a headlock and just like... And then he'll beat me up, and then I'll start planning my next ambush.
Against him or against another
Against him,
co-star?
specifically, yeah.
Why him?
Just because, you know, because
He's
he's
your
all
target.
butch and macho, and he thinks, you know, thinks he's great.
Where season 1 ends with kind of Klaus, and you kind of see him coming to the table to help his family.
Yeah,
and save the world. What was your reaction to that, and
It was
how was
brilliant.
bringing that circle full
I think,
circle?
you know, like the writers of the show were all headhunted from something of such quality like Fargo, you know.
Yeah.
So you know that they're going to establish a sort of a concept like Klaus is a hopeless drug addict, and then they're going to find a way to kind of flip it on its head, Japanese theatre style, you know what I mean? So I always knew, I mean, I knew sort of the vague, broad
Where it would
strokes
go.
of where he would go, and, you know, all the Vietnam stuff and all the withdrawal stuff. I loved all that. I was really proud of all that. I was like, whoa, that's good. You know, I was very happy with the rest of Klaus's journey, all the kind of really pain-laden stuff. So he kind of comes out slightly shell-shocked on the other side.
Because he's surprised by it too.
He is, you know, and now it's like, what's going to be his new vice? Where's he going to take that addictive energy? And I think he has to throw it into something else.
Do you think it'll be towards helping people?
It might be.
That'd be a good thing, no?
It will, but I mean, I already know.
You do. Are you
kind of-
satisfied, and will fans be satisfied with where it goes?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it goes somewhere very, very different. I don't know what the rest of them are doing,
Yeah.
really.
Maybe it's just Klaus next season. Just...
Yeah, hopefully, I mean. No, but I don't know really the sort of the details of the other journeys. Just snippets here and there, bits and pieces, you know. But it's quite it's quite complex. And so really the kind of the luxury of a many-threaded series is that you don't really have to know
No, yeah.
until like you get given the scripts and you read it and you're like, oh wow, that's interesting. So you can kind of, like it's nice doing this show as well because you relinquish a sense of control. Like I'm not someone who needs to be across everything all the time. You know, I just need to kind of know in advance enough what's going to happen with the character, so that I can start kind of building a kind of a portfolio cachet of stuff that I can bring to it and add to it and get my energy closer to what it has to be. And then after that, it's like...
So reading the comics had no interest for you? Or?
Oh, no, of course.
Okay.
Of course. You got to do your due diligence, of course, you know, in case Gerard Way shows up and starts kicking your letterbox in, which he has been known to do, folks. You know, big boots up to his thighs.
One thing I really questioned in the series was kind of the way the siblings handled Vanya's powers and by like locking her up. Do you think they could have handled it a little bit better instead of locking her up? What was your take?
I think yes, they probably could have, yeah.
In what way?
You know,
What could they have
Tom, who plays Luther, has
Yeah.
got a lot of flack.
for throwing her?
Yeah, he's been saying that he's just read a few bits and pieces online. They're like, how could Luther do that? And like, you know, fans who are so invested, it's great, who get kind of frustrated and angry at the fact that he took charge and locked her in this thing.
After what she did
I
to
suppose it's
Alison
like an
Krauss.
allegory for like, it's almost like nuclear war or something, you know? You've got a nuclear warhead and you don't know what to do with it, so you try and like neutralize it as much as you possibly can. And I think that's the thing, is that he's not much of a leader, Luther, but he tried to do what he thought you're supposed to do, take the hard line. But he did probably the opposite thing you should do, but just sort of try and be a bit more nice and a bit more caring.
Thank you so much for being
It's all right,
here.
Brian.
Really appreciate it.
No worries, man. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.